In 2002, a small village in Korea becomes the backdrop for the story of Jin-woo. He is a childish high school student who never focuses on studying. Mischief defines his life, and his days revolve around playing and causing trouble. At school, Jin-woo has 4 close friends. Dong-hyun is chubby and spends most of his time eating and sleeping. Pyong-ju is always lazy, often dozing off in class, which is why his head is filled with dreams. Tae-hwan constantly thinks inappropriate thoughts, earning him the nickname Animal Lust. Sung-bin is the most handsome in the group, though his good looks often draw playful teasing. On that particular day, Sung-bin wore new shoes, which his friends immediately dirted. Together, the 5 boys walked into class. Before entering, they caught sight of Shauna, the most beautiful and intelligent girl in school. She is admired by everyone, not only for her looks but also for her role as class president. Every boy, including Jin-woo's friends, has a crush on her. Jin-woo, however, is different. He knows she is out of his league. For him, it was love at first sight, but he quickly realized it was hopeless. Instead of holding on to something impossible, he chose to step back and accept reality. At that moment, Jin-woo never realized how much she would change his life. This is You Are the Apple of My Eyes. When class began, Jin-woo stirred up trouble as usual. He spilled milk onto Tae-hwan's desk, and it dripped onto Shauna's chair.
그리고 제 사회 욕구, 저준욕이다.
뒤로도 다 보인다.
야!
야, 이 쌍놈! 쌍욕.
지금까지 열심히 떠든 놈들 다 일어나.
As a result, the 3 of them were punished together. Shauna grew frustrated with Jin-woo, as his antics dragged her into trouble she did not deserve. Later, during physical education, Shauna's friend Jisoo demonstrated a new dance she had practiced. Shauna praised her, but Jin-woo interrupted with mockery, calling the dance terrible. This angered Shauna.
너는 어떻게 맨날 연습한다는 애가 뚱덕보다 못 추니?
She believed Jin-woo had no right to ridicule others when he had never put effort into anything himself. She told him that people who refuse to try will never get anywhere. Jin-woo dismissed her words, saying he was lazy by choice, because if he ever tried, he would succeed easily. That night, Jin-woo had dinner with his parents. At home, he had the strange habit of staying naked, copying his father who did the same. His mother scolded him for refusing to study and skipping lessons, but his father defended him, insisting that Jin-woo should do whatever made him happy. The next day, economics class began with Mr. Jo, a teacher known for constant yelling. Without warning, he announced a pop quiz. The students were caught off guard, and before starting, he ordered them to hand in their homework. Everyone reached for their books, but Shauna looked nervous. She had forgotten hers. In that moment, Jin-woo handed her his homework. Mr. Jo noticed and punished Jin-woo, barring him from the quiz. Shauna was left wondering why he had done it, unaware that Jin-woo's true reason was simple: he wanted to skip the quiz. During break, Shauna thanked Jin-woo for helping her. To him, it was nothing important, and he even joked that if she wanted to thank him, she should bring him a gift. Later, when she opened his book, she saw a note where he had written that he had no dream. Curious, she asked him if that was why he never studied. Jin-woo ignored the question and went off to play basketball with his friends. Sung-bin noticed Shauna trying to talk to Jin-woo and grew jealous. He could not understand why she would give attention to someone like Jin-woo. After beating him in basketball, Sung-bin told Jin-woo to stay away from her, claiming she belonged to him. Back in class after the break, Shauna called out to Jin-woo again. This time, she gave him her notebook filled with predictions for the upcoming test. She told him that if he studied it, he might score well. Instead of appreciating the gesture, Jin-woo grew angry. He said she sounded like his mother, always pressuring him to study. He insisted that being lazy was better, and that avoiding effort was the way to avoid being used. That night, after tiring himself out with boxing practice, Jin-woo looked at the notebook she had given him. He was surprised that while his friend saw him as a fool, Shauna trusted him enough to share her work. He opened the notebook and admired her handwriting, which was so neat that he found himself reading through the notes without realizing it. The following day, the school held a festival where students wore traditional clothing. When Shauna appeared in hers, she looked stunning, and the boys were amazed. For the first time, Jin-woo looked at her with feelings he had never allowed himself to acknowledge. That night, Jin-woo asked his father if studying was truly important in life. His father was surprised at his sudden change of attitude. The next day, Shauna discovered that Jinwoo had solved all the problems in her notebook. He was so tired from working on them all night that he struggled to stay awake in class. In the following nights, Jinwoo continued studying with Shauna's notebook. The math problems were difficult, but he kept trying. A few days later, the math test took place. When the results were announced, Mr. Lee read out each score. Everyone was stunned when Jinwoo's name came up. For the first time, he had scored above average.
삼각함수 루트 그딴 거 몰라도
그래, 넌 계속 그렇게 유치해라.
그래 넌 계속 유치해래.
Weeks later, the school held a study tour. The students spent the day outdoors, joining games and activities. During free time, Jinwoo played with the boys while the girls watched. Sungbin, fueled by jealousy over Jinwoo's growing closeness with Shauna, insulted him and called him childish. At first, Jinwoo ignored it, but the situation escalated when Sungbin punched him, sparking a fight. By the next day, the two were back to normal, eating lunch together as if nothing had happened. During lunch, Pyongju shared a ghost story about a student who studied late at school and encountered a restless spirit.
이름이랑 학교에 더 남아가지고 공부하고 있어. 바닥에 투.
The story frightened the group. Even Shauna appeared unsettled, and in class, she asked Jinwoo to be her study partner. Jinwoo was surprised, unsure why she chose him. Despite her dismissive remark afterward, he agreed. They turned it into a bet. If Jinwoo won the next test, Shauna would let her hair down. If she won, he would cut his hair almost bald. From then on, they studied together, and Jinwoo worked harder than before. He also began noticing qualities in Shauna that made her feel different from everyone else. When the test came, Shauna scored higher, and Jinwoo had to cut his hair. The following day, Shauna stayed after school to study. Night fell, and she was alone when the lights suddenly went out. Fear grew until Jinwoo appeared. He had stayed behind to be with her. Seeing his new haircut, she laughed, and afterward he walked her home. On the way, Jinwoo kept glancing at her, sensing a new feeling he could not explain. His mind resisted, but his heart told him it was love. When Shauna dropped her bag, Jinwoo helped her gather her belongings. He noticed piles of love letters, a reminder of how many rivals stood in his way. Moments later, rain poured down, forcing them to find shelter. While waiting, their hands brushed, making the air tense. To ease it, Jinwoo splashed water at her. She splashed him back, and soon they were both laughing in the rain. That night, Jinwoo realized something simple. If he could not win Shauna's heart, at least he could make her laugh. Being the one who cheered her up felt like enough. The next day at school, Jinwoo and his friends were stunned when Shauna appeared with her hair down. She looked beautiful, and Jinwoo was confused. She had won their bet, so why would she do what was supposed to be his prize? After school, Jinwoo found that his father had washed his uniform. He broke down in tears, because he had left it unwashed on purpose. It was the same uniform he wore during the rainy day with Shauna, and he wanted to keep the memory alive through the scent that lingered. Now, it was gone. Time moved forward, and Jinwoo entered his final year of high school. He was no longer in the same class as Shauna, yet he quietly held on to his feelings and stayed close whenever possible. He never thought about confessing, choosing instead to focus on studying with her. Together, they shared the same dream of attending university in Seoul. Soon, the day of the college entrance exam arrived. The students prepared themselves for the challenge that would decide their futures.
초등학교 6년, 중학교 3년, 고등학교에 평가됐다.
When the exam ended, they felt empty. Months of fear and pressure were suddenly over, and it was time to celebrate. Jinwoo and his friends went to a carnival, played games, and later spent time at the beach watching the sunset. While the group enjoyed themselves, Sungbin took the chance to pull Shauna aside. He saw it as his moment to confess before everyone moved on to different universities. But before he could speak, Jinwoo noticed and interrupted, cutting off the chance for Sungbin to reveal his feelings. As the day ended, the group sat together, resting and sharing their thoughts. They spoke about their futures, their fears of being separated, and the dreams they hoped to achieve one day. A month later, the exam results were released. Jinwoo was thrilled to see that he had scored well. His parents were proud, and he now had the chance to study in Seoul, with 2 university options available. In the middle of this joy, Jinwoo received a late-night call from Shauna. Her voice was heavy with sadness, and he rushed to meet her. When he arrived, she was crying. Her score was lower than expected, and her dream of entering her chosen university felt shattered. She believed her hard work had been wasted and her future was ruined. Faced with her tears, Jinwoo wanted to lift her spirits. But instead of offering comfort, he awkwardly confessed his feelings. His words only upset her more. To Shana, Jinwoo had failed to understand the depth of her disappointment, and his timing made her anger and sadness even heavier.
인생이 망하는 줄 알았다.
A few days later, graduation arrived for Jinwoo and his friends. Not everyone achieved the scores they wanted, but each managed to enter a university. Shana stayed in her hometown after being accepted there, while Jinwoo was the only one who successfully entered a university in Seoul. After the ceremony, Jinwoo walked home with Shana. Along the way, he asked about her goals in college and whether she planned to date during her studies. Deep down, he wanted to confess his feelings again. Yet he held back, worried about damaging their friendship. He still remembered the first time he confessed, which ended with her in tears and no clear answer. Convinced she did not feel the same, Jinwoo instead gave her a bracelet, a quiet sign that she was special to him.
끊어질 때 소원이 이뤄진대.
Soon, their lives moved in different directions. University brought new routines, new people, and new friends. Even so, Jinwoo's feelings for Shana never faded. He hoped for another chance to confess one day. In between classes and campus activities, he often checked her social media. Seeing her photos brought him comfort, though his friends teased him and asked about the girl who always caught his attention. At the same time, he noticed another boy appearing frequently in her photos. The sight stirred his jealousy, making him uneasy about her growing closeness to someone else. One day, Shana called Jinwoo to say she was visiting Seoul for an event and wanted to meet. Hearing this filled him with joy, since it had been so long since he had last seen her. When they met, Jinwoo's heart raced at how beautiful she looked. He took her to a restaurant, purposely ordering a couple's meal set. The choice made the atmosphere awkward, but it also made the moment feel like their first date. Later, they walked together in a park. There, Shana admitted she was not as perfect as people thought. She said she was clumsy, often lost her belongings, and was out of touch with current trends. Then she asked Jinwoo if he truly liked her despite those flaws. Jinwoo froze, unsure how to respond. He wondered if she was trying to reject him indirectly, even before he spoke. Deep down, he believed she already knew how he felt. For him, love was never about her beauty or her kindness. He could find those traits in others. What made Shana different was that she had once believed in him when everyone else dismissed him as a foolish boy. Because of that, Jinwoo knew he had to wait for the right moment. This time, he could not let the chance to confess slip away. Time passed, and although they were not officially dating, Shana and Jinwoo grew closer. They exchanged messages daily, checking in on each other and sharing pieces of their lives. During this period, MMA fights became popular among college students. Jinwoo, known for being reckless yet strong, found the idea appealing. He began training and eventually signed up for an inter-college MMA competition. Excited, he told Shana about the match and asked her to come watch. Instead of supporting him, Shana disapproved. She believed fighting was childish and dangerous, and she wanted Jinwoo to focus on his studies and act more mature. Despite her objections, Jinwoo refused to listen and prepared for the match. When the competition arrived, Shana still showed up. Unfortunately, Jinwoo was badly beaten. Bloodied and bruised, he lost the fight, and Shana, unable to watch any longer, walked away. Jinwoo chased after her, insisting that losing in fights was normal. Shana grew frustrated, saying she did not want to see him act so immature anymore. As they argued, a group of male students approached and began bothering Shana. Jinwoo lost his temper and tried to fight them, even as Shana pleaded for him to stop. Out of patience, he attacked anyway, only to be beaten again. This left him more injured, while Shana grew angrier. She told him he never changed, that he was still childish, and that by now he should already be more mature. Her words hit him deeply. He realized she might never have felt the same way. With a heavy heart, he apologized, admitting he had been foolish to think someone like him could win the love of someone like her. Then he walked away, even as every part of him wanted to turn back.
난 아무것도 몰라.
이번 유치한 말을 쏟아내고 있었다.
잘난 너를 좋아해서 미안했다!
그래야 그걸 깨닫는다는 걸.
The next day, their old high school friends noticed the break in his relationship with Shana and tried to take advantage. Sung Bin stood out the most, arriving in his luxury car, spending time with her, and listening to her worries. His timing worked in his favor, and Shauna welcomed his company. Meanwhile, Tae-hwan, who failed to get close to her, sought out Jin-woo instead. They drank together, though Jin-woo realized Tae-hwan was not there out of sympathy but because he too had been rejected. Afterward, they went to karaoke to release their frustration. Jin-woo sang loudly, his heart aching, while Tae-hwan told him that Sung Bin and Shauna had been spending a lot of time together. Hearing this crushed Jin-woo even more. But it also opened his eyes. Sung Bin was wealthier, more attractive, and more mature. If Jin-woo wanted any chance at Shauna's heart, he needed to change. Determined, he decided to begin his mandatory military service, hoping the experience would shape him into a stronger and more mature man. Time passed, and Sung Bin and Shauna grew closer. Yet Shauna began to sense that his feelings were not for who she truly was. Meanwhile, Jin-woo started his military service. He longed to be with Shauna, but he knew he was not yet good enough for her. He believed that when a man falls in love, he should evaluate himself and strive to become worthy. A year went by, and Jin-woo still held on to his feelings. Then news broke that Shauna's hometown was hit by a flood. Worried, he desperately tried to contact her. He even borrowed his superior's phone and was punished for it, but he finally managed to reach her. Relief came when he learned she was safe. Since it had been so long, they talked and caught up on each other's lives. Jin-woo asked about Sung Bin, only to learn that she had never dated him. Curious, he asked why. Shauna admitted that the only man who had ever loved her for who she was had always been Jin-woo. She wondered why he had never given her the chance to share her own feelings. Jin-woo admitted he had been too afraid she would not feel the same, and that rejection might destroy the love he carried for her. They exchanged gratitude, but before the conversation could continue, her phone battery died. Another year passed, and Jin-woo completed his service. He then focused on building his career and eventually succeeded as a comic artist with strong sales. By then, he had grown into a more mature man with a bright future. Yet in his heart, Shauna remained the one he loved, and he thought it was finally time to return to her. Before he could, Shauna called. On that call, she told him she was getting married. The wedding day arrived. All their high school friends attended, including Jin-woo. He smiled, but inside he was hurting. Everyone felt sad seeing Shauna marry someone else. Even Sung Bin admitted that no man could be happy watching the woman he loves end up with another. But Jin-woo thought differently. To him, true love meant praying for her happiness, even if it was with another man. During the photo session, Jin-woo made a sudden choice. He kissed the groom. For him, it was not about the man she married, but about releasing years of anger, disappointment, and regret. In that strange moment, he felt as if he were kissing Shauna one last time, turning it into a final memory of what they had shared. The truth was, Shauna had always felt the same way. That was why she once asked him to study together. Back at their school farewell, she even told a friend that what she truly wanted was for Jin-woo to confess and ask her to be his girlfriend. But it never happened, held back by misunderstandings and their lack of courage. After that day, they finally let go. They did not end up together, but both were grateful for the time they once shared. Jin-woo realized that some people are meant only to remain as memories and dreams. The end. So the moral of the story is, even lazy people can surprise everyone and still win a little love along the way.